Hello everybody. Like Professor Blow said, I'm Evan Turek, the team lead for the Automated Show Control System project. This is Tyler Ellis, our Scrum Master. Gilbert P. couldn't be here today, but we've got Andrew Gonzalez, our other developer. So we're going to start right off with the demo of our program. So the Automated Show Control System, its primary function is to put on a show. It specializes in taking a variety of media, including audio, video, and external devices such as lighting software, or the lights that we have, and synchronizes them for on-stage theatrical productions, such as plays, musicals, pageants, or even talent shows type things. So to start off, we'll just show you how to use our program, the general workflow of how the program works. So the first thing you might want to do is create a scene. Scenes are just like a scene in a movie or a play. It's just one small segment of the entire show. So we can name the scene, and then we can click autoplay, so that way if there's a scene before it, it will automatically play this scene. We create it, and it appears in the scene list. Any other scenes we create will also appear in the scene list in chronological order. The next thing we might want to do is create a command. There are 3 types of commands: audio, video, and MIDI. First, let's make the audio command. What this does is you take a file from your file system and import it into the program. A command for audio or video, which we can create now as well, are just simply references to those files on your computer. And you can use those commands anywhere on your computer, or anywhere in the program rather, in any scene, and as many times as you like. The final one is a MIDI command. MIDI commands are musical instrument digital interface commands, which is a protocol for sending signals from your computer to various devices, such as the lights that we have here, to control them. So for instance, right now we're setting this one up to send a red signal, or not the signal isn't red, but a signal to the light to turn it red. And what we can do is we can change the color of the MIDI file, or the MIDI command rather, to red to signify that that is the type of command that it is, to set it to red. And it will appear in the command list. So we can create another command, blackout command, and this command will set the light to black if we put the right signal in. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set it to black, and it'll turn the light off, and save it. So is the MIDI working? Okay. So what we can do is take the test file and drag it onto the timeline. So the timeline is a visual representation of a scene. So why don't we zoom in on the timeline? We can fit to screen using the drop-down menu. And let's add the video to the scene as well. You can do this easily by dragging and dropping it directly onto the timeline. And we have a couple of extra MIDI outputs that we don't really need, so let's just hide a few of those, get them out of the way. This is useful because you can have any number of devices plugged into our program, and you might not want all of them cluttering the timeline. But let's pretend we don't have our light with us. What we can do is create a ghost output. A ghost output is a placeholder for a lane on the timeline, for an output device. So for instance, in this case, we created a ghost MIDI output, and we can put the 2 MIDI commands that we created onto the timeline. And so for the second one, as you can see, there's the MIDI, the audio event rather, has a graphical display on it. That is the waveform. The waveform is basically just a graph of the volume at each point during the audio file. So what we can do, and what this is useful for, is lining up MIDI events with certain parts of the song. So if we were to play this right now, the test file, you can see that each of those bumps on the waveform matches up with the waveform, or the audio, rather. So what we can do is, we have the MIDI commands, but they didn't do anything because they are not on a real lane. It's just a ghost lane. So to simulate plugging in a device, we can remove the ghost lane, and it'll open up the device found lane. And so we assign it to a new device, which is the MIDI, and as easy as that, the ghost lane disappears, and the events that were previously on the ghost lane are now on the MIDI lane that we specified. This is extremely helpful if you've got a whole show full of MIDI events, and you want to be able to just arrive at the performance and plug a light or any type of MIDI output in, and simply map it to it. You can also do that for audio and video links as well, in case you have speakers or displays that are not connected to your device. So now what we can do, why don't we open up the video viewer, and let's just preview this scene. We can play it, and we will see. And it's kind of hard to see with the light turned on. And so we can just pause that now. And as you can see, the video plays, and everything is going according to plan. So what we can do is duplicate this scene. Why don't we right-click on it and click Duplicate Scene. And as easy as that, we've got a copy of the scene. So we can rename it Fading. And let's go over to that fading scene. And why don't we delete the video out of it and group the test file and the red MIDI command. So the MIDI command is connected with the audio file now. And this is helpful if we imagine we have an entire 5 minutes worth of MIDI commands, hundreds of MIDI commands potentially, and they're all synchronized with the audio file. But we decide we want to put another song before that. Instead of having to move the audio file and then move each of the MIDI commands individually and line them up again, we can simply group them and slide it right to the right, and they move all together. So why don't we right-click on the video display and add in a video. So we can right-click on the timeline and simply select a command or create command, and as you can see, the command appeared in the command list and right on the timeline where we right-clicked. So let's make one more scene now. We can call it Skip, and it'll appear right in the scene list. Let's go over that, and let's add in a test file onto the audio link. So up to this point, we've been showing you the scene view, where the scope is an individual scene, and you can edit the events within that scene, which are the commands. Now, let's switch to show view. Show view, the scope is all of the scenes in order, and you can edit the order of the scenes. So we can either drag them on the timeline, or we can right-click on the scenes in the scene list and change their order. So why don't we make it fading at the top, skip second, and the scene last. So now we have them in the order that we want, and you can see the timeline updates to replicate that. Why don't we go to performance mode? So far we've been in edit mode, and as you can see, you can do lots of different editing things to create the show. Performance mode is the mode that you play the show in, as the name implies. Performance mode is a dark theme, not just for aesthetics, but also because when you're in the back of an auditorium with a bright light shining in your face, that can not only be distracting for yourself, but other members of the audience. You know, if you look back at the back of the room, or if they're even on the side sometimes, the show controller can have a bright light shining in the face, which not only is distracting for the audience, but when they're looking between right screen and the stage, it can be a little bit of work to adjust their eyes. So we set it to a dark theme for those reasons. So now let's pretend we're at the show, we're ready to perform our show. We start playing the scene, and we realize the next person that would perform hasn't shown up. What we can do is we can right-click on scene 2 and skip it. And right like that scene will not play. But theater is unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen. And the person that is performing in the scene just finished. So what do? Do you make the audience wait for this entire rest of the scene? No. What you can do is you can click the fade button, and it will fade out the video and any audio playing, and seamlessly transition to the next ready scene. Now this is extremely helpful in cases such as the one we described, in where the scene finishes early, or it's just an interlude scene, and we want to be able to transition seamlessly into the next one. But let's rewind a little bit. Perhaps the person in scene 1 didn't finish early, and the person in scene 2 arrives in time. Well, we want to re-include the scene, but we don't know how. What we can do is go to the help guide. We can search include. We click search, and the help guide appears, and the first and only option for that one is include scene. As you can see, right-clicking on a scene will give the option to re-include it. And so voila, we do that. And so what we can do now is, if we want to learn more about the program, we can click on the related topics, which are all the things that are mentioned in that little blurb about the topic, and you can click on any one of them. Let's say just skip scene, for instance, and it'll give you a couple options, and you can keep on going through until you learn everything that you want to know. So why don't we close out of that? So I hope that this demonstration gives you a little bit of understanding of the workflow. It's super easy to just create a show, and obviously this one wasn't super interesting, but you can generate a show pretty quickly. But we don't have a ton of time to make an interesting show, so we made one. We pre-made one, and we spent a little bit more time on it than this one. So why don't we go to demo 2? And we're not professionals. We don't do this show design for a living like our client. But we spent a little bit of time, and this was what we were able to come up with. So I hope you all enjoy. Of developing our program.
So the automated show control system is built to be able to synchronize audio, video, and any other device you plug into it using the MIDI interface system. It's mainly used, as Evan said earlier, for theatrical productions, and it's mainly focused on running on Windows systems using Windows 7 or 10 or beyond. There is other software that exists that does similar things, such as QLab and Multiplay. The real problems with those is QLab is a Mac-only system. Multiplay doesn't contain a visual representation of your show, and a few of the other alternatives out there cost thousands of dollars. So our system can interact with speakers, screens, monitors, projectors, lights, fog machines, any type of device you can interface using the MIDI system. For this project, we programmed it in C# and XAML, and we used Visual Studio for that. We did version control using Git on Bitbucket and using SourceTree as our local management system. We did our design documents and various other documentation we needed on Google Drive, and used draw.io to make the diagrams. Most of our team communication was through Facebook Messenger, and we used Trello as our Scrum board. The automated show control system uses NAudio as a library to run audio and MIDI commands. The WPF framework as the system for being able to run this application on Windows machines into the future. MS Test so that we could do unit testing and automated UI testing, and SQLite to run the database that is the back end of our help guide. We also had the added challenge of starting this project off of a previous year's project, which we had to study, learn, and understand before we could continue development on it. Our Scrum process was 1 to 2 week sprints based on the complexity of the tasks we were trying to do. And we had Scrum meetings 3 times a week, which we did either in person or digitally. We also used our Trello as a Scrum board, where we had categories for assigned, being designed, implemented, under review, and done. In the future, this project could have several things added to it, such as an API to allow for more devices and more media being able to be outputted out of it, and other features such as a video editor or audio editor, and ways of adding notes to the timeline so during a performance you can record changes you would like to make in the future, and also more ease of use features such as event snapping and the ability to remove time between two events. Any questions?